Box Hill is the cultural activity centre of Melbourne's eastern suburbs, and is famous for its Asian cuisine, with hundreds of different international restaurants lining the streets and shopping centres. It's also said to be the northern terminus of the eastern section of the suburban rail loop, once it opens in 2035. This means Box Hill is a pretty major transport interchange, with trains, trams, and Melbourne's second largest bus interchange. Chadstone is the first. This means that there are many ways to get from here to the city centre, and in this video I'll be comparing all three modes of transport from Box Hill to the city, how long they take, which routes they follow, and places they stop along the way, and also which one you should take in different scenarios. I've timed all three modes to see exactly how long you can expect it to take. Just be aware that buses and trams can be affected by traffic. I've used Swanston Street as the end of timing for all three methods, as it's the city's main central transport artery, so without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the slowest method, the bus. Box Hill is home to Melbourne's second largest bus interchange, serving 17 different bus routes. Located on the roof of the shopping centre. Buses travel up this ramp to an elevated loop with a total of 13 bus bays, serving routes that travel all around the area, to places such as Chadstone, Doncaster, Greensborough, and Oakley, as well as the 903 Smart Bus route, one of Melbourne's most frequent but also longest bus routes, at over 3 hours long. The 302 bus to the city departs from Bus Bay 4. The bus is the least frequent form of transport to the city, and only comes every 30 minutes, so it would be wise to check the timetable if you plan on catching it. The bus exits Box Hill to the north, passing the Box Hill Hospital and then heading up to the suburb of Mont Albert North, before taking a sharp turn onto Belmore Road. Unlike the tram and train, the bus doesn't really head past any major activity centres, the only notable one being Harp Junction, which also serves as an interchange with Tram Route 48. It even has its own little tree-lined siding with some shelters. The bus then turns onto the Eastern Freeway, just for a short bit, before taking the exit towards Hoddle Street. Hoddle Street is one of the few streets in Melbourne with actual bus lanes, although these are only used by buses during the morning peak, with the rest of the time them being used as on-street parking. The bus then turns onto Victoria Street, before heading onto Lonsdale Street, the major east-west bus corridor through the city. And finally, after 54 minutes and 6 seconds, the bus finally reaches Swanston Street. Overall, while I was expecting the bus to be quite slow, I didn't anticipate just how slow it would end up being. Overall, I would not recommend taking the bus in most scenarios. The only case I could see it being worth it is if the trains are down and the traffic is bad, as the bus travels down streets that are not as busy as the streets the 109 tram travels down. Moving on, we have the tram to cover next. Box Hill is served by Tram Route 109, terminating just outside the shopping centre. The 109 is one of the busiest tram routes in Melbourne, and it even has its own song. Currently, there's a detour in place that requires you to walk an extra 300 metres down Whitehorse Road, then across the road and back again to reach the tram platforms. Although as the suburban rail loop continues to progress, it's likely this detour won't be in place for much longer, so I won't fault it for that. Trams run roughly every 10 minutes to the city, with higher frequencies in peak hour. Box Hill is one of the busiest tram stops outside the city centre, so if you're boarding a smaller A-class tram, there's a real chance you may not get a seat. However, most trams running here are the largest C-class, which are much bigger and more modern, although they're over 20 years old at this point. The 109 travels along Whitehorse and Cotham roads, passing through many shopping strips past the suburbs of Mont Albert, Balwyn, and Deepdean. The 109 has interchanges with tram routes 72 and 16 along this section of route. The tram then turns along High Street, visiting the busy Kew Junction, with many shops and restaurants, sharing track with Route 48. Finally, the tram turns onto Barker's Road, past the scenic Barker's Road cutting and the Victoria Gardens shopping centre, through the busy area of North Richmond, and then finally reaching St. Vincent's Plaza, where the tram turns left to follow Collins Street through the city. I was a bit surprised at just how slow the tram really was, taking exactly 48 minutes to travel from Box Hill Central to Swanston Street. To add to this, it's likely to be a lot more affected by traffic than the bus, as the roads it travels are a lot busier. Despite this, however, it's still the best option when the trains are down in most cases, and if you have anything else you need or want to do in Kew or Richmond, it's probably the best bet. Finally, we have the train. The train station is located underneath the shopping centre, down a few stairs to reach the platforms. I've already covered Box Hill Station in a previous video, so I'll try to keep this brief, but Box Hill doesn't have a Platform 1, meaning all trains depart from Platforms 2, 3, and 4. Trains to the city will depart from Platform 2 and sometimes 3, and come every 10 minutes on weekends, and every 15 off-peak on weekdays, with peak frequencies getting as high as every 6. Most services off-peak will make 11 stops on the way to the city, with some express trains running during weekday peak stopping at just 4. Almost all trains will not stop at East Richmond. The most notable stations on the way to Melbourne are Camberwell and Glenferrie, two incredibly busy stations that also serves as interchanges with trams. Glenferrie also serves Swinburne University. Another important thing to note is that depending on the time of day, trains will serve stations in the city in a different order. On weekday mornings, they will serve Parliament, Melbourne Central, and Flagstaff first, but on weekday afternoons and weekends, they will serve Flinders Street and Southern Cross first. Here I took the train on a weekday afternoon, meaning I arrived at Flinders Street first. However, the journey would be slightly longer if I had done it in the morning. While they're running, trains are usually the most reliable form of transport to get to the city, taking just 27 minutes and 58 seconds, with express trains able to make the trip even faster. This means trains speed out driving in most cases, and especially in peak periods. However, it is still a lot more common for trains to be down over a tram or bus, especially on weekends, and with the level crossing removal project sometimes causing disruptions that will continue into the foreseeable future. Box Hill is an amazing transport interchange and cultural hub that does a great job of showcasing the different modes of transport Melbourne has to offer, and the many different ways to get from here to the city allows for unparalleled flexibility in service. There are many other places you can reach from Box Hill easily by train or bus, such as Ringwood and Doncaster, but I won't get into that here. If you enjoyed this video, let me know as I'll consider making ones for more places in the future. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.